Damn.
Alright, it's time to bring up one of the most important questions in the Witcher games once again, and that is, did Lambert have an affair with our dear darling Triss?
Sure.
In case you haven't heard of it, there's a bit of a conspiracy surrounding that question. I did address it once before in my Details Missed About Triss video, however back when I made it, I hadn't yet played The Witcher 1, and so I relied on YouTube videos and things people wrote to me, but now that I have played through a good chunk of the game, there are a couple more details I need to address. I've actually found another small clue that may support the theory, which I didn't talk about before, but I also realized that something else, which I initially presented as a major piece of evidence, is actually wrong. And that changes a lot. So we gotta talk about the whole deal once again. Also, I have now read the books, so I can bring them up as well. However, let me get something out of the way first. What we have here are small clues that don't mean too much on their own, but when put together make for an entertaining conspiracy theory, at least in my opinion. So don't take this way too seriously, I'm mostly just having fun and speculating. Also, I have no personal stake in this, I'm not trying to convince anyone that this theory is true or false, I'm not trying to make you like or dislike Triss or Lambert or anything like that. Oh, and also, there may be massive spoilers in this video, so be warned.
Understood.
Okay, with that said, let us proceed. So based on my initial presentation of the theory, we had 3 or 4 small clues which suggested that something may have happened between Triss and Lambert. 2 of those are in The Witcher 3. The first one is that the Triss Marigold card is in Lambert's possession.
Have you crying like a baby by the time I'm through with you?
Can't believe I gotta give up my unique card. Better your hands than someone else's, I guess.
And in case we never play with him, we can then find it on his bed at Kaer Morhen. But wait, does that mean Dijkstra had sex with the Bloody Baron? Well, not necessarily, it's just that in The Witcher 1, whenever Geralt sleeps with a woman, he gets a card with her on it. And so now, in The Witcher 3, we have another Witcher, namely Lambert, who has a card with Triss on it, and so there we go. Now the second clue is this scene.
Alright, Geralt, your turn. I've never jumped out a lover's window. That's so. Must have been one tough character whose wife you were plowing.
That wasn't it. He was a friend. Didn't want to hurt his feelings.
Yeah, you're a true friend. Right, men. Let's end on that. Or else I'll never be able to look you in the eyes again.
Now, on its own, this scene does not tell us too much. But the important thing here is that the dialogue seemingly relates to something else in The Witcher 1. Specifically to a video I found a long time ago where they show footprints on the floor of Triss's room leading from her bed to the nearby window.
I've never jumped out a lover's window.
And the cherry on top was a certain screenshot, the authenticity of which I cannot confirm, but it was sent to me personally by a viewer where he, allegedly, asked the official Witcher Twitter, or was it Facebook page? Honestly, I'm not sure which chat interface this is, but he basically asked them if there's anything going on between Triss and Lambert based on these clues. And they essentially confirmed that yes, there is. Which is huge, obviously, if it's true. But let's continue. As I mentioned earlier, I hadn't played The Witcher 1 at this point, and so when I recently started, I was really curious to learn more about this whole thing, and initially I even found another clue. So, there are these 2 slightly different codex entries for Lambert. The first one basically says, there's this guy Lambert who's very mean to people, especially to Triss Marigold. And the second one is, there's this guy Lambert who's very mean to people, but sometimes that's his way of expressing his affection or something. So if you put 2 and 2 together, it's not difficult to see that there is, perhaps, an implication that he is fond of Triss, whatever that means. However, and here we get to the big problem that has emerged with this theory, and it is that I finally got to see the footsteps in Triss's room with my own eyes. But it turns out that the whole thing is not actually true. At first glance, it does indeed seem like they start at the bed and end at the window. However, if you squint your camera angle just right, you can see that they do not originate from the bed at all. They only pass by it. The truth is that there is this bathtub in the room, and it is where the wet footsteps begin. They do in fact go all the way to the window, passing alongside the bed, and it is simply the lighting in the room which makes them most visible around the bed area. So unless Lambert and Triss had sex in the small bathtub and then he ran away from it to the window, I don't see how this can be used to support the theory at all. It's far more likely that Triss simply took a bath and went over to the window afterwards. In fact, we can even see her in her nightgown sometimes, so that just makes much more sense to me. And if these footsteps do not mean anything, then suddenly the official social media response doesn't make as much sense either. What's more, suddenly the whole scene during the drinking game also doesn't fit. The reason why is because if they did not have sex here at this point in the story, then they must have had it back at Kaer Morhen at the very start of the game. You know, when Lambert and Triss were together at the fortress before Geralt arrived. However, in that case, the dialogue doesn't make sense because based on the books, there is no reason for Lambert, at this point in the timeline, to think of Triss as being Geralt's woman or anything like that. In fact, when asking the question, Eskel even uses the word wife.
That's so. Must have been one tough character whose wife you were plowing.
And the truth is that prior to the games, Geralt never had anything serious going on with Triss. There was a brief thing between them, which happened, a decade ago or something? And since then there has always been Yennefer. Well, actually Yennefer was before that too. So yeah, if we were discussing the possibility that Lambert slept with Yen...
Lambert? Really? I'm flattered.
Hell, at this point, even Fringilla Vigo would fit better. But Triss? Definitely not. And so the conclusion is that it has to have been later, after Geralt returned and started a relationship with Triss. And this is why the theory about Triss's home later on, which by the way also has a teleporter inside, worked so much better. But not anymore. I suppose you could still speculate that based on the codex entries and the Gwent card, and maybe even the drinking game, that Lambert and Triss did have something somewhere at some point in time behind the scenes, but that's just far less interesting and not really worth speculating in my opinion. Finally, I should bring up the books, I guess. They truly did not seem to like one another very much, which I'll admit doesn't mean that they couldn't have had a relationship of some sorts. After all, this is a world where a certain woman was proven to be truly in love with a certain man and literally tried to murder him, but there just isn't anything to suggest that Triss and Lambert had sex or wanted to have sex at any point. There is a part where they're all together at Kaer Morhen, Lambert, Triss, Geralt, Eskel, Vesemir, Cohen, and Ciri. But during that period, Triss is so obsessed with sleeping with Geralt that I don't think she would have done anything with anyone else. Actually, while Triss was not a loyal friend to Yennefer, like not at all in the books, I would at least say that she was loyal to her own affection for Geralt, or so it seemed. And after everything I've said so far, I gotta say that I'm even less inclined to believe this conspiracy theory than I was before. I mean, if only the footsteps scene was as I thought it was, it would have been so much more believable. But now, I very much doubt it. So, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the matter. Feel free to share them down in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a like. Finally, let me thank you all for watching and for your support on the YouTube membership thingy, as well as Patreon, and until the next video, stay tuned and be good.
I'll manage.
You always say that.
Haven't killed me yet. Well, except for that one time.